Welcome back to No One Told Us, the podcast that tells the truth about parenting and talks about all the stuff you wish you knew before having kids. I'm your host, Rachael Shepard-Ohta, and today we are talking with Dr. Sasha Hamdani, board-certified psychiatrist, ADHD expert, and author of the new book, Too Sensitive: Rejection, Resilience, and the Science of Feeling Deeply. Dr. Hamdani specializes in ADHD, rejection, sensitive dysphoria, and emotional regulation, and through her clinical work and social community of more than 2 million people, she's helped change the conversation around ADHD, especially for women and parents who have spent years wondering why life feels harder than it seems for everyone else. And this is one of my most anticipated reads of the entire year. I am so excited for this book, and I'm so happy you agreed to join us for this podcast. I know so many people are going to really benefit from this conversation and from being just introduced to your content. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've been so excited about this.
Oh, yay. It's going to be a great conversation. This is something that I think all of us think about. ADHD is just like it's unfortunately like a buzzword now, and everybody's talking about it, which I'm sure you have thoughts on, both positive and negative. We'll get into it, but I just think it's so important. It's so top of mind for so many parents, and I think this book is just going to hit exactly who it needs to. So I can't wait for myself to get my hands on it and for everybody else. So I just want to start with asking, why did you feel like this was the right time to write Too Sensitive?
I think a couple of reasons. One was more personal, and one was more like just, looking at where we are in the world. The personal side of things is my dad passed a couple of years ago. So I was like right in the thick of really difficult emotional processing, and like grief, I know objectively is really difficult for everybody, but for me, who had been managing my ADHD to some degree, I felt like it was the first time I realized that when I was faced with something so emotionally heavy, and this has been a trend historically in the past, but this is the first time I actually realized my functional status goes down. So if I'm overwhelmed by stuff, or if I have lots of stuff on my to-do list, most of the time I can delegate, I can figure out a way to hack around it. But if it's something truly emotionally dense, that's when it really tanks me. And I thought back at different points in my life, in motherhood and in marriage and in like academic things. And those were the pockets where I felt the most overwhelmed, the most helpless, that I was floundering the most. So I felt like at this moment in time where I was going through grief, where I had 2 young kids, where I was transitioning like different spots and roles in my career, I was like, I don't know how to handle all of this with this emotional overlay on top of it. So I really wrote the book truly to find a spot where all the information was in one place. Like, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with this in the context of, if you are emotionally sensitive, or if you do have ADHD, like what are the tools that actually work and how do you apply them? So that's part of the reason why I wrote that. And the other more global reason is like the world is so difficult right now. It's so hard, and it's so hard to navigate, especially if you are trying to regulate your own internal environment to model for your children and to show your children and to guide them through this process. So I felt like this was the right time.
Yeah, I appreciate it because I agree, and I've been feeling it. I know so many people have been feeling it, just extra raw or extra on edge, just all the time. And it, like you said, makes it so hard to parent small kids when you're just always feeling that under the surface. And we're going to get into women specifically in a moment, but just hearing you talk about this, I think so many women have probably lived most of their lives this way, and they don't know that it's because they have ADHD. And that's why I love the title of your book too, Too Sensitive, because they're probably just called too sensitive, dramatic, too emotional, too much. What do those labels actually do to people over time if they don't understand what's really going on with them underneath?
Well, first and foremost, a lot of my data and research were built out of studying ADHD. And that's, the educational area that I started from. But this concept kind of goes even beyond that. For truly neurobiologically, emotionally sensitive people, it's not necessarily that they have ADHD. A lot of them do. But it can be it can be anywhere, kind of depending on how you fall in that spectrum. So for that person who is highly emotionally sensitive, when they're hearing, you're too sensitive, you're too much, you can't handle conflict, like you're fragile. That's something I've heard since birth. I think what happens is that you hear that enough times and it starts to become part of your internal narrative. You're like, this, I've heard it so many times, it simply must be true. And then the way you go through the world and the way you interact psychodynamically with other people or with other situations is that you start to understand I'm the problem, and you start to approach them either more cautiously or you interpret them with a negative lens. And what that does over time is it really robs you of a lot of opportunity, of a lot of self-courage, and a lot of self-worth. So you're trying to navigate through this world missing that critical component of self-trust. It's really difficult to show up in life doing the things you want to do and show up in life as a mother and a parent and whatever other role you occupy if you don't trust how you feel.
Right. That makes so much sense. And I think when you started to answer that question, you kind of made a distinction that I think we should even maybe double down on and explain further so that people can understand, because I talk about temperament a lot with, babies and kids, and talk about highly sensitive children and people and stuff like that. And as you know, there is overlap with ADHD and other neurodivergences, but I'm curious what you found in the research as far as where do you draw that line? Like, where is the delineation between being emotionally sensitive and having something more clinical as a diagnosis?
Rachel, I love this question.
Okay.
Because that's what I agonized over.
Yeah.
Because when I was going through, before I even decided to write this book, I really had to sit with the question with, like, is this just me? Like, how do I know that this is actually a problem? How do I know, like, where is that line between emotionally sensitive or just like you're going through a hard time? Like, where are we? So I think the way that after kind of looking and by the way, looking at things in terms of like neurobiology and looking at things in terms of, cultural significance and looking at things in terms of gender, when you put all of that stuff together, you start to understand emotional processing as a spectrum. And so if you're looking right in the middle, where you would say like, this is normal, right? I don't even know what normal is, but like normal emotional processing.
Right.
The way that I kind of quantify that is like, with an emotional stimuli, you respond appropriately. So when good things happen, your mood elevates. When bad things happen, your mood depreciates. And then it's proportional to what is actually happening. Now, on one end of the spectrum, you look at apathy, where people don't kind of move one way or the other. Like, emotional stuff are happening and they're like, meh. It's kind of like emotional blunting or numbing, where you don't feel especially high, you don't feel especially low. You could see it with depression. You could see it with medical disorders. You could see it with burnout. You could see it in a lot of different spots. And then on the other side, and this side is where I live, where emotions, you process emotions very intensely. So something might happen, and it may be something that doesn't move people from the median up or down tremendously if they fall into that typical range. But for you, something small happens and you're responding robustly up, you're responding robustly down. And so it's just the way that you process emotions. You're feeling things very quickly, very deeply, and for a long time.
Okay, that's very helpful. And I think probably a lot of parents right now are like, oh, that sounds like my kid.
Yeah.
Because that was like one of my first clues with my oldest, who is very, very emotionally sensitive. He still, he's 8 and he still does react very strongly to things that were just like, whoa, didn't realize that was going to be even a thing on the radar. And like, here we are. But I think that is kind of the entry point that a lot of people find, oh, wow, I wonder if this is quote unquote normal, right? So then when I was recently asking my audience about their favorite deodorant because I was looking for a more natural deodorant that actually worked. And so many people messaged me like, how do you actually find products that are safe? I'm pregnant or I'm postpartum and I'm breastfeeding and I just want to know that the things I'm using are safe. And I know this can be so confusing and overwhelming and really hard to understand. So I really recommend Safe Mom, which is an ingredient checker app made for expecting moms and their partners. And you can scan everyday products like cosmetics, skincare, sunscreen, and even food. And it'll flag 100 ingredients that pregnant women should avoid, including things like retinoids in your skincare, chemical UV filters, and more. All you do is open the app, scan a barcode, or take a picture of the product, and you'll get the result in seconds. So it's super easy to use in your bathroom, in your medicine cabinet, in your skincare, and at the store as well. It's already trusted by thousands of moms around the world, and there are tens of thousands of products scanned every single month. You can try Safe Mom by downloading on the App Store for free. Start scanning risk-free for 7 days when you download today. You can try it at home or at the store. That's Safe Mom. My friend Caitlin recently asked me if I had ever tried Factor, and I said, I'm honestly offended that you don't know that I love Factor. She is recently postpartum. She has a very little 6-week-old baby, and she's looking for an easy, quick way to nourish herself with really delicious food that doesn't require any prep or planning or mental load. So I told her to absolutely try it, and I'm loving it too. We've been traveling so much these last few weeks. And I mean, honestly, just the hit that we take to our routine in the summer is super tough. So it's really hard to get back to meal prep and shopping and cooking and all of those things. And we're not slowing down. We have school coming up and it's only going to get crazier. So I love that the Factor meals are ready in just 2 minutes. They don't require any prep or cleanup. So even on the days that my schedule is completely out of control, eating well is still really achievable and very easy. They really have something for everyone. I absolutely love their steaks. They taste like restaurant quality and they give me the protein that I'm looking for. So let's eat real. Head to factormeals.com/no-one-told-us-50-off and use code no-one-told-us-50-off to get 50% off and 1 free breakfast item per box for 1 year while supplies last until October 31st, 2026. That's code no-one-told-us-50-off at factormeals.com. No-one-told-us-50-off at factormeals.com. See the website for more details. Does it tip the scale into something more? Is it like, does the spectrum include ADHD, or is that a whole other lane that you go into?
It's a whole other lane. So here's what I would say. Like, if we're looking at that spectrum, I'm just looking how you emotionally process. Mm-hmm. Now, for some people, you could fall in the middle, you could fall on one side, and both of those spots could have ADHD. So diagnostically, that doesn't really help you in terms of that. The one thing that I would say does fall on that diagnostic spectrum is something called rejection sensitive dysphoria, or RSD, which is this extremely robust emotional response to perceived rejection, criticism, disappointing others. It's where you're looking at that as the trigger, but it unleashes this flooding of alarm chemicals because your body is like, I am in danger, something bad happened. And so you're responding very, very intensely. And I would put that on the end of the spectrum along with the people who feel things very intensely. Mm-hmm. For people who are specifically triggered by that stuff, I think they could fall into that category of rejection sensitive dysphoria.
Okay, very interesting. And do you have the RSD? I think you've talked about that, right?
Yes.
Because I've seen you talk about this and I'm like, how are you a content creator on the internet? Because I will spiral over the smallest, the smallest negative comment or criticism. I will think about it for days, even though you get so many messages of praise and of thanks too. Those don't register for me. It's the ones that are like, you said this wrong, or like you made a typo. And I'm just like, I'm wondering how you deal with that.
I don't do it well. I mean, if I see anything negative, I do the same thing. I spiral out. It discourages me from creating. So what I do, and I've had many people point out to me that that's not the most effective strategy for a content creator, is I post and ghost. Like I post something, I schedule something, and then I'm away from the computer. I have screen time limits. I don't want to see stuff. Yeah, if it's bad, smart. If it's good, like I just want to put my information out there. You choose what to do with it, but I don't need to. So I don't actually do a whole lot. Sometimes I'll stick around initially with like initial comments and comment to those. Like if I'm still kind of posting something or if I'm like looking at stories, I mean, it'll come up. But generally what I've found is like the people that feel strongly and are posting right in the beginning, those are people that generally like my content. So those are
true.
Safe.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. No, it's when you go viral and hit the people that don't know you, that's when you have to worry, because that's when like the real vitriol comes
Oh,
out. It's
I know.
crazy.
And it's like, do you have nothing better to do? Like
They
that's
don't. They
decimating my
don't.
feelings. Get out of here.
I know. They really don't.
It
Okay,
makes me feel so bad.
we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little more specifically about ADHD, especially when it comes to girls and women and moms. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Okay, so ADHD awareness has kind of exploded over the last few years. It seems like everybody's kind of self-diagnosing or getting real diagnoses and talking about it, which I think is so great. What do you think has changed? Why do you think this is like such a huge thing now that it seems like everybody has ADHD all of a sudden?
Um, well, first, I don't think ADHD is more prevalent.
Right.
I think we're getting better at picking it up. So I think I
Mm-hmm.
think the people that are, when we're talking about this incredible increase in ADHD diagnosis, especially within the adult female population, you have to then look back at longitudinal data, and you look back and you're like, well, these were the people that weren't getting picked up initially. Like they've had
Right.
it this whole time. It's just
Right.
that, physicians, we were poorly, I mean, truly, and I'm saying we because I am included in that. We were poorly trained, right? We
Right.
all thought ADHD was something that typically presents in hyperactive young boys. And
Mm-hmm.
so in the 90s and early aughts, you're just getting into these situations where women were getting skipped because they're not disruptive in class. They're not hyperactive. They're the daydreamers, and they're a pleasure to have in class. So they're getting
Right.
passed on. And so a lot of times these women are now coming to the forefront after getting their own kid assessed, and they're like, whoa, that sounds
Yep.
exactly like me.
Yep.
And so you're picking up these women now. The other thing that kind of piggybacking on that is that, part of it wasn't even the physician's fault. The initial criteria was built on those observable behaviors of hyper young boys. But the second thing is that our current diagnostic criteria really doesn't encapsulate or do a good job encapsulating true ADHD. And I think true ADHD is not just an attention disorder. I think it's a regulation disorder. So I think,
Mm-hmm.
yes, attention is part of it, but so is emotional regulation, so is sleep regulation, so is motivation regulation, so is appetite regulation. I think all of that is dysregulated in ADHD. So I think when women are going through the assessment, if they're not like ding 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 with like the observable criteria for attention deficit, then what happens is that physicians are just like, okay, well, based on the criteria we have, you're probably anxious, or you're depressed, or you have mommy
Mm-hmm.
brain, or their hormones. And so, you get every other diagnosis under the sun. And, sadly enough, a lot of times you're mistreated for years and years and years. And then down the line, you got on TikTok, you got on Instagram, and you're like, whoa, this sounds like me.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to your doctor, and your doctor is like, well, we can't really do anything or assess for ADHD because this anxiety and depression haven't cleared. So then you're just kind of like stuck, and you're like, well, I advocated for myself. So like it's this very broken system. And I think a lot of it stems from, number one, bad criteria. And number two, it's physicians just because of that bad criteria, not understanding the full comprehensive picture. So we built a system designed to fail women.
100%. So what do you think are some of the more, not, I don't want to say classic signs because like you just said that they have been missed for so long, but what are some of the signs that parents of girls might look for? Because I think sometimes people assume that with boys it's obvious, or if your kid is super hyper or can't focus, can't sit still, it's super obvious. But what are some of those other things that are like hallmark signs of a child that might have ADHD?
So I think when you're looking at ADHD in children, again, there is that gender difference that occurs. And so with boys, typically you do see the hyperactive. You see physical and verbal impulsivity as well. For girls, you're seeing this daydreaming, forgetful presentation, difficulty starting tasks, difficulty completing tasks, difficulty keeping things organized, loses things frequently, forgetful. Rachel, can I put you on hold just for 1 second? Or can I?
Of course.
Hey, Ollie, can you get out and can you shut the door, please? Yes, but just close the door. Enough.
So relatable. I can't tell you how many times my kids have come in here and interrupted my recordings.
I'm like, when does school start?
Oh my
Why
God,
is
not soon
this
enough.
still a thing?
Not soon enough. Not soon enough. Oh my God.
This is like the 40th time this, and like it's just like savage beatings upstairs. Like if you hear the howling upstairs, I know what happened. She whooped him, and now she's coming down for like treats. And I'm
How
doing
old are
something,
they?
so I can't regulate. 6 and 8.
Oh my God, mine too. And then I have a 3-year-old as well, which don't know why we did that.
Oh my God, insane, insane. Boy, girl.
Oldest is a boy.
Older two.
My oldest is a boy, and then my younger
Oldest
two are
is a
girls.
boy.
Yeah.
Okay, my oldest is a girl. My younger one is a boy.
Oh, okay.
And
I've always wondered about that dynamic. We've always said, like, I wonder if our household would be more peaceful if our oldest was not the boy, because he's just like a terror. He's our sensitive one. He's our one that's just like emotional, like terrorist of our house, basically.
Both of my kids are pretty emotionally sensitive, but my girl is a terrorist. In this, she's something else. Something else. Like she sets the tone for the entire house. If she's having a bad day, we're all kind of swimming in it.
Exactly. That's how my son is. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me, I think you had pretty much like answered it. So
yeah,
I can just move on. Okay. Okay. And then you also create such helpful content on social media that I think really does help people see themselves and maybe, like you said, advocate with their providers. What is your take on social media and people talking about ADHD? Do you think it's mostly helpful? Do you think that there's still a lot of misinformation? What should people be cautious of when they're consuming content about it?
It's a hard question to ask because I'm on social media as well.
Right.
So like I'm already coming from an implicit bias. I think there is a lot of really good information. I also think there's a lot of really bad information, which is why I started on social media in the first place. I literally started creating content to like counteract and like stitch and like duet videos where I'm like, this is dumb. This isn't a real thing. And so it started off just kind of correcting medical misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is, when you look at kind of how ADHD is talked about online, there are two things you kind of want to look at. Number one is lived experience. And for a lot of people, I think that is so incredibly vital. So I don't care if you have a medical degree, like just talking about it, I think it's destigmatizing. I think it's bringing a lot of awareness. But I think people need to be aware that this isn't necessarily a universal experience, that quantifying like if something worked for someone doesn't mean it's going to necessarily work for you. Like what you're doing for you is highly personalized. So I think if you are going to social media and looking for lived experience and validation, great. If you're going to social media to look for accurate medical information, you need to be more discerning. And so you need to follow licensed mental health providers because they're the ones who are, number one, they are the best trained in their fields. Number two, they are the ones who are presumably the most up to date on data and research. And number three, I mean, they're the ones who have like a professional responsibility to be credible and to put good information. Whereas, you know, anybody else, you know, especially with this entire movement of like people very focused on like wellness and things like that, it's really difficult.
I was just thinking of like all of the wellness influencers and yeah.
And so I'm like, I mean, raw honey is not going to cure ADHD. Like it's just like unpasteurized milk. Oh, I've seen it all. So I think it's just like one of those things that it's unfortunate because first of all, like I'm not even putting this on the person consuming the content because I've fallen for AI videos like left and right recently.
Yep.
So I think it's getting increasingly more difficult. The other thing that's difficult is there's like deep fakes out there. I've seen videos of myself talking about things and I'm like, the only way I know it's not me. I know, it's terrifying. I actually went to DC a few weeks ago to talk to Congress members about like, what are we doing about this? It's terrifying.
It's so terrifying.
It's so terrifying. But what I'm saying is like our whole landscape has changed and it's getting increasingly more difficult to figure out what's good information, what's bad. So I think what my best advice would be is like because for a lot of people, access to care is a huge issue. If you're going to social media to get information, just take that extra step to figure out who is giving it to you. And a lot of times it's right on their initial page.
Yeah.
What I will tell you is if it's hard to find out what their training is, what their background is, it's a red flag.
There probably
So
isn't
if you're
any.
seeing,
Yeah.
there probably isn't any.
Right.
So if they're saying Dr. So-and-so, which doesn't tell you what kind of doctor it is. You can't find it on Google. You can't find it on their website. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a good litmus test right there, is if it's too hard to find, just maybe move on, find somebody else.
Not reputable. Because it should be well documented. Well, like, people should, like, if you are a trusted source
for medical information,
why you're a trusted source. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's the Wild West right now, and it's very, very scary. Yeah. So I think that's perfect advice. You mentioned a little bit ago that so many women find out or like start to think about the fact that maybe they have ADHD once they have kids and their kid is kind of, either struggling in school or going through the diagnostic process or something like that. Why do you think so many women in particular don't discover they have ADHD until after becoming parents? Is it simply because they weren't screened 30 years ago when they were in school, or are there other reasons that parenthood might bring this up?
It's many different reasons. Number one, they probably weren't screened. Number two, if they were, if something did pop up, they probably were misdiagnosed and then potentially mistreated, or inaccurately treated. But there's also a huge executive function leap that happens when you go from taking care of yourself to now taking care of this little brain and body that depends entirely on you. That is like a huge leap that happens. And so there, like a lot of the time, you see ADHD diagnosis kind of jump up, or at least start to get diagnosed in periods of big transition. And so that can be like as you're going through puberty. That can be as you're entering like college or a transitional phase. All of a sudden things get really, really difficult. That can be entering like your first real, relationship or real breakup, like a huge transition there. It can be around hormonal things. It can be like perimenopause or postpartum. So you're seeing like, and then kids are obviously like one of the biggest transitions. So I think there's just like what is placed on you is a lot larger. And so it's more difficult to keep on top of stuff. And so I think that might be another reason.
Totally. And just thinking about the emotional side of things too, even if it's not full blown ADHD, or you're just realizing maybe that, for me, I never considered myself to be a sensitive person at all. My parents would always joke actually that I'm like the least sensitive person ever. And then for some reason, motherhood just like cracked me open, and I can't handle anything now. Like I was up last night until 11 o'clock just thinking about climate change and like thinking about what my kids were going to, and I just feel things so deeply now. And I'm wondering if that is also a common experience when people have kids, that they just start to feel more deeply or get more in touch with their emotions. Or is it just because we're living in fascism and it's just, this is hard for everybody, right, regardless of your emotional state?
It's a dumpster fire for sure. So I think a lot of people, they confound emotional sensitivity with anxiety. And I think there are components of both that are happening, just living in a really difficult world. But I do strongly believe that emotional sensitivity comes in waves. Like you can have like a relative baseline, but there are certain things that definitely rev it up. Hormones are one. Hormones can absolutely exacerbate it. But like motherhood, which is kind of hormonal also.
Yeah,
but
of
like
course,
just like the lack of the fact that it's a marathon and not a sprint, like the constant amount of load and burden on a parent as they're going through this process, it drains resources. So you're going through this, time, which is, just a miraculous time, and such a gift. But at the same time, it takes a lot out of you. It is a difficult time. It's something that requires a significant amount of discipline. And so if your baseline is already kind of, you're in a spot where that's difficult, you swing more. So even people who weren't exceptionally emotionally sensitive growing up. It could be that motherhood happened and now they are feeling things greatly. It could be a result of fatigue. It could be a result of hormones. It could be a result of just like parenting sensitive kids. Your body and your brain changes in order to like parent and emote with this child. So there are lots of different things, but I think it doesn't change the fact that emotional sensitivity in general is a neurological kind of phenomenon, and it needs very specific tools. And I don't think anyone is talking about those. And that's what I think is so frustrating about this whole process, because I'm like, now that we're kind of understanding, like, okay, the way we process emotions is literally wired in your brain, and it's how your body responds to things, emotional stimuli. I feel like now that we know that, like, start bringing up these tools. Teach it in schools. Like, do it from the beginning.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because before I did this, I was a special education teacher for about a decade. And I was passionate about teaching emotional regulation skills and social skills and all of that stuff. It's so, so important. And our schools are like, I mean, here in San Francisco, we're okay, but a lot of schools around the country are starting to roll back those types of programs. And I'm like, no, this is like the most important thing for kids to learn early. It's the most important.
It's going to literally build the foundation so they can do all of the other things. But without regulating emotions, like, and I will tell you as an adult, just like I was telling you in the beginning, I got to a spot where I'm like, if I can't regulate my emotions, I can't do anything else. I cannot be productive. Exactly. I cannot parent. I cannot be a physician. I can't, like, if I can't get on top of this, I won't be able to be a productive member of society. So, I mean, these are the skills you got to teach.
100%. What do you think? You're mentioning tools. And one thing that I hear all the time is from certain providers is, oh, just make sure you get lots of sleep. And that is great. And I love that advice. And I love my sleep. And it's not always possible for a parent of really young children to get as much sleep as they would love, so that they can feel their best selves and feel emotionally regulated. So what are some other tools? Is there anything else you can give us that would be helpful?
Oh, yeah. So when I was writing this, again, like, this is all on the context of like, I needed to sort my own stuff out for sure. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I need to, like, now I understand that this is neurological, but like, is that the long and the short of it? Am I just going to be like that? And then it was like, okay, no, because the brain is incredible and you can actually rewire and retrain the brain. Like, we are able to do that, which I think is so incredible. But how do we do that? So then when you're looking at tools, I had to pull from like every single spot of neuroscience and neuroanatomy and psychology and psychiatry, trying to figure out like what works in the moment and what works over time. And every single one, Rachel, is stuff you have heard before. It's not sleep, but it's like stuff you've heard before. But I think the big difference is that when you look at how they impact, those tools impact, like, what I would say an emotionally sensitive crisis point, like something that really triggers that big emotional response, and you're trying to like figure your way out. I think if you understand those tools and when to use it and how to use it, which is like, I mean, for so much of my life, like, I would get into a thing and my mom would be like, just take a deep breath. And I'm like,
right.
No.
But
I think once you understand like the neuroscience behind these things, like, what does this is what's happening in my brain. And this is how each of these like real world examples are, because the second half of the book is just like real world examples of when this is triggered. What's happening in the brain? What tool do you use? How do you apply it? And so it just, right? And so I think for me, the way that when I was going through medical school, when I was going through training, I didn't understand psychiatry concepts like just at face value. I needed to understand what was happening in the brain, because then I felt like, okay, I understand it. This is like a real phenomenon that's happening. And this is how the tool actually applies to what's happening in the brain. And so it made sense. And for me, I truly looked, because I did not want to write another book. I was not interested. Like, my neighbor is the one who was like, just see if you can, like, go and talk to an editor and maybe you'll have a different experience. But I was not in the market to write another book. But I felt like there really wasn't a resource. Like I just wanted someone to be like, when someone is, when you get constructive criticism at work, here are the steps. If this is what's happening in your brain, and here are the steps of what to do. That would have been so helpful for me. That would have saved me in my 20s.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I'm thinking too, like, I wonder how these things would even apply to parenthood. And we're going to take one quick break because I would love to hear some alternative ideas too for how to deal with our really emotionally sensitive kids who just will explode or have like really big reactions to things. We're going to take a quick break and come right back. Okay. Sasha, I would love to hear you talk about these tools as it refers to our kids as well. And I know this book is, you know, mainly for us adults, but there's got to be some tools that would work for you no matter what age, because I admit I'm in the parenting space and I love most parenting creators and I think that they have great intentions, but a lot of them just don't have your level of training maybe, or don't have this understanding that sometimes when your kid is having a complete emotional breakdown, a script or telling them to take deep breaths is like not going to cut it.
Not gonna work.
It's not what they need.
No. And so I wrote this book for adults. Gross. I wrote this book for adults, but I was right in the throes of like one of my kids was 3, one of my kids was 5. I was like right in the middle of, you know, really difficult, not like fun, but hard and like just task heavy ages in their lives. And so I wrote this also understanding, like, I see this in my kids. What can I do to work on my own regulation so I can also teach that to them? So I think all of those skills you can work on with your children as well.
Yeah.
But I think when you go through that, so I have something called the Calm Your Mind Toolkit, and it's just 12, it's acronyms. And each of those is a tool. So, you know, C is for challenge negative thoughts, and then it keeps going into like ALM and then your mind. For each of those, I think it's important to understand, number one, recognizing that sensitivity within yourself and that you're having an emotional response. So looking at kind of, okay, this is when I apply, because it looks different for each scenario that's happening. For example, I'll give you an example with my kids. I have one girl, one boy. If I told my girl, like, let's just calm down, let's take a deep breath, she'd do relatively okay. Like, she wouldn't like it, but like she'd do relatively okay, and she could follow my direction and work through the moment. My son is wiggly like me. Like, he's just kind of more on this like very just highly kinetic side. And so if I was like, stay still and take a deep breath, I mean, he would have a panic attack. Like, he would just, like, it would be like asking him to do something that felt impossible in the moment. So right. I know for like my more restless kid, and I know when I'm having moments where like I'm feeling so emotionally overloaded and I have these moments where I'm like, I'm pacing because I'm so restless. I would love to be able to take a deep breath and calm down, but that's not going to work for me at this moment. I'm just like, my entire nervous system is vibrating. For that, instead of trying to like force something that feels very antithetical to what you're feeling, that lean into it. So for my son, we lean into movement. Like, if you need to work through that emotionally heavy time and big, robust emotional response, let's move. So for him, I'm doing things like, okay, this was super overwhelming. Why don't we do this? And we do this thing. This happened 2 days ago. I was very uncool about, I was on a call, as you know, because this happened like seconds ago with our recording. I was on a call, and he came into the room and I snapped at him. He heard my tone, was really upset, ran off. I finished that patient encounter. I'm like, I am so sorry. like, I shouldn't have done that. You took me by surprise. And, because of privacy concerns, I really can't have people in the room while patients are telling their story. And so I'm trying to explain to him, he's still so upset. And, it's heartbreaking because I'm like, I caused that. But as he's doing that, he is like rocking back and forth and wiggling in his seat. And he's like, no, Mom, I'm like turning away. And so we did this thing where I'm like, I know this is my wiggly kid. I know he's like feeling very restless. I know like telling him sit still and take a deep breath, not going to work for this kid. So I actually learned this online, but I thought it was so interesting. I was like, let's take this towel. And so there was a towel by us. And I was like, why don't we like flap the towel? And so just like the movement of flapping this towel, eventually he started to kind of, it was like 30 seconds. And eventually he started to break, and then it became more of a game. And I could see in real time that we were regulating his nervous system and getting him out of that moment. Once the moment had passed, then I tried again. And I was like, you know what, Vince, I'm so sorry. Because what I should have done is I should have just calmly said, I should have stopped the patient encounter. I should have said, I'm so sorry. My son came into the room, and then I should have told you, hey, Vince, I need a little bit of privacy. But instead, I kind of exploded because it was happening so quickly, and I didn't think. And so I wanted to tell you how sorry I am. And he's like, it's okay, Mom. And then we moved on past the moment.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where you just have to, like, once you understand how sensitivity and emotional response shows up, there's specific tools that you can use. And It's very applicable for kids.
Okay, that's so helpful. Because, I'm even thinking about my son, who's my sensitive one. And I'm like so curious to learn more about the RSD because he really shuts down with any type of feedback, like anything that he perceives as negative. He has a really hard time with. And, sometimes my husband will try and talk to him and like talk him through it. And like that is the last thing that he wants. So it's really tricky to know like how to, because then even when you try to like pump him up about something, he'll kind of like shut down as well. It's like too much. And so, so we're always just looking for other things because we don't want to walk on eggshells in our own home. And we also want him to get used to and comfortable with getting feedback because that's a part of life. You have to be kind of resilient to things like that. But it's just hard to know like what tool to use at what time.
It is so hard to know. And I would say, like, because I've had this and I've also had like seen this as a parent in my own child. And I think honestly, it's a little bit easier if like you are intensely emotionally sensitive and have rejection sensitivity with a kid because you're like, oh, I know that.
You get it. Yeah. Yep.
Right. So if you're not like one of those people who's like deeply intimate with that, it can feel like, my kid is really going through it and this is so big of a response and I have no idea where this is coming from. One of the tools in the toolkit is just accept the present moment, which is like such a, I feel like objectively when I was writing it down, I'm like, this is dumb. I'm going to take it out. Like, cause like all of us should be able to do that. But I think the way in terms of like how you do it and when you apply that, because sometimes, and I was looking at it within the context of my own relationship, sometimes, like with my husband, he is very quick to provide a solution. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want a solution.
No,
I feel bad and I just want to feel bad. And so his thing is like, okay, when I am in a spot where I'm like, I just need to feel in this moment. He's like, okay. And like, he's so wonderful. But, we'll sit on the couch and his thing is, I think he's just like a very emotionally intuitive parent. And I think he's kind of parenting me in this capacity because when I'm going through these moments, he'll be like, all right, well then I'm going to sit on this couch and I'm going to be right next to you. If you want to talk about it, we could talk about it. If you don't, we don't have to, but I'm going to be here. And if like, let me know if you need anything. And just his presence, just not doing anything, just that support, knowing like, this isn't, and sometimes it's after we beef.
Yeah,
but knowing that, I haven't pushed him away, that he's there to support me in this time. I feel like it helps us work through the moment, and I kind of accept, like, I'm feeling these big things. I know it's not going to last forever. Let me just walk through it. And I keep kind of looking over because, like, I'm so hyper responsive to, like, is he turning away? Is he
Right.
sighing? What's his tone doing? But, like, knowing he's just neutral and he's sitting there and he's going to stay and that kind of stuff, it's so calming to me.
I bet.
And
I bet.
right. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I have started to kind of interact with, like, when my daughter has these kind of things, because my daughter and I just
Mm-hmm.
slam heads every opportunity we can get about certain things. Like, if it's ever about TV, that's what's happening. And so when I've learned that sometimes, like, I can tell her all the reasons why we're not going to watch a million hours of TV today.
Right.
I can give her alternative things to do. But if she has gotten so worked up and, like, she's already had this big neurological response, I know in her brain she probably knows that what she's doing is way out of proportion to what it should be. But I'm just going to be there. You didn't chase me away. I'm going to sit here and we're going to work through the moment. I don't even have to do anything. But the thing that I make sure that I'm doing is that it's not that I'm, like, it's not a mindless presence. So it's not like I'm sitting by you and I'm also
Right.
scrolling on my phone. I'm sitting by
Right.
you
Right.
and I'm holding space for you and we're sitting together and I'm showing you that I'm attentive to this moment. And not to other things, because then it's like this is just where you've chosen to sit and do your other stuff. Like, I'm paying attention to you, but I'm giving you space, and eventually she'll kind of, like, work her way out of it. So I think it's knowing
I love
what to
that.
apply and when.
I love that. And I feel like that's such a great balance. I try to do that too. And I think it's such a great balance to a lot of the parenting advice we hear about, like tantrums, where on one end of the spectrum, it's, either send them away, time out, or just completely ignore them and have like a shut down face and like don't even interact. And then on the other end, it's like, get down on their level and narrate their feelings and validate every emotion and like walk them through. And it's just like too much. So I think what you're describing sounds like a really healthy balance that just kind of makes sense and also eventually teaches them how you can regulate yourself.
I know, and I think it is regulation for myself in real time, because, like, if it's
Exactly.
about
Yep.
TV, I'm also like a full-on psycho about that, and I get so bent out of shape. And it takes me a second to regulate. So just that act of us sitting together and that closeness and being together, I'm taking inventory. I'm taking stock of the moment. I'm calming myself down in real time. She's seeing me breathe. She's
Right.
seeing me, like, press my hands. She's seeing me kind of go through these things, and you look over and she starts doing it too. So
Mm,
it's it's a it's a tool to use. I
right.
think, for every parenting situation, their children are different. Everything,
Yep.
the situations are different. The access and the time is different. Um, but I feel like it's just helpful knowing that there is a toolkit that you can use for people that are highly emotionally sensitive, and it is effective and it works well to build resilience over time. Like, I wish I had this 40 years ago.
Right. I know. Me too. And I wish I also had
Yeah.
it 8 years ago when I was like just trying to figure out my kid and myself and my
Yeah.
husband who has ADHD and like the whole family system that we are. So I'm so excited for your book and I just can't wait for parents to read it and to read it myself and read it with my husband. The last question I have is like usually more of a personal one, which is, and it doesn't have to do
Yeah.
with any of this if you don't want, but what's one thing that you wish you knew before you became a parent that no one told you?
Ooh. Um, I wish. Can I tell you, like, a very, like, concrete logistical thing that changed between my first and my second child? I really beat myself. My first child, I was like, I have to do everything. I have to do it
Mm,
all. And even in the hospital, like, I had a C-section and I was in the hospital for 4 days or 5 days or whatever. I wouldn't even let my kid go to the nursery because I'm like, I want to be with her the whole time. And I just, like, even before I even left the hospital, I was so tired. Like, I didn't know how to breastfeed. I didn't know how to do anything. And I was coming out of the gate so exhausted. I wish I had known With my second kid, I did this better. I'm like, if you have help, use help. If you
Yes.
are at the hospital and you can go, if your kid can go to the nursery for a little bit and take a nap there, and then you could take a nap so you're not like constantly looking to see if she's breathing or if she's turning or if she's doing whatever, do that.
Yes, I love that. Ask for help. Take the help that's offered to you. It's such good advice. I know. And I think so many of us experience that with our first. We think our worth is like tied up in our ability to just do everything, which is so not the case. Sasha, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining. Where can everyone find Too Sensitive and learn more about your book and keep up with all of the other amazing content you put out?
Yeah, so on socials, so on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, I'm the Psych Doctor MD. And so there's a lot of information about book and book signing and all of that fun stuff. And then Too Sensitive is officially out on August 25th, but it's available for pre-order before then. What's really nice is with pre-order, one, I just learned this the other day, is that sometimes it comes a little bit early, which I dig. And then the second thing is with the pre-order, if you do pre-order like immediately, because I was like, I've never pre-ordered something in my life, so I want something awesome if I pre-order, is that you get that sensitivity spectrum quiz. So you figure out where you fall on that spectrum even before the book comes, which I think is a beautiful starting point.
Great. Yes, I pre-ordered. I'm very excited. Thank you so much. If you're coming to San Francisco at all for like tour or signing or anything like that, or the Bay Area, let me know. I would love to come.
My sister lives there.
Wait, where do you live?
No, I don't live there. My sister lives in Pacific
Oh, your
Heights.
sister lives. Oh, amazing. Oh my gosh. So nice. Okay, cool. All right. Well, let me know. This has been such a great conversation, and I know it's going to be so helpful for so many people to just feel validated in their journey. So thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Rachael.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.